Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to start a new series on my channel that follows under my religious category. So stay tuned, find out what that new series is. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I've covered a lot of religious based things on my channel. Anything from Scientology to religious fundamentalists to a lot of different topics covering religion. And I've hinted at, I should say, my religious background. So I'm going to start a series today covering my religious background from the beginning to my journey out. I've given bits and pieces here and there, but I've never told the full story all the way through. So I'm going to start today. I'm not sure how many episodes it's going to take. I don't know how long this is going to be, but I want you guys to get a full grasp of what my religious background is and the reason why I feel a need to speak out against religious fundamentalists, the reason why I'm so passionate on this topic, and the reason why I keep covering things like this. And so the best way to do it is just tell you where I'm coming from. So I was raised in the South, okay? In the South, in every town, there are countless numbers of churches. Not only do you find a church like on every street corner, but they have churches in strip malls. There are churches everywhere. Literally everywhere. We have more churches in our towns than we have fast food places, entertainment, any other thing that you can think of. We have more churches in our towns. Okay? So, growing up, my parents, my mother and father, never went to church. The only time I ever saw my parents in a church was for like events like weddings or funerals or things of that nature. Like, they did not attend church on like Sundays and Wednesdays and church meetings and things of that nature. But I had to. And it started at a very early age. My mother is one of 5 children, and her family was more religious. Now, my grandfather was a lot like my parents. You only really saw him in church like on special occasions, like weddings, funerals, things of that nature. But one of his sons, so my uncle, is a pastor. Now, at this time in my life, I'm 36 now. My mom's one of 5. She has 3 brothers, and her sister. 3 of my uncles on my mom's side are pastors. So, yeah. The religious roots run a little deep. Okay? Now, on the opposite side of the family, on my dad's side of the family, no one goes to church. My dad's one of 11 kids, but we also did not associate with that side of the family very often due to the fact of their behavior. I often joke in my job now that I come from a family of criminals, but it's not really a joke. When I was growing up, a lot of my uncles were, hellraisers. They were, in and out of jail or, in trouble in some form or fashion with the law. Then as me and my cousins got older, it turned into my cousins and so on and so forth. So we really did not do much with my dad's side of the family. So since we were very close to my mom's side of the family, church kind of kept coming up. So starting at a young age, and I want to say the first time I was ever like made to go to church. I want to say I was like 4 or 5. That age, you just think you're going to have fun. You go to Sunday school, you color, you're hanging out with your friends from school, because I was from a very small town. So it was like everybody went to that church, and I was there with my friends. We colored, we played, everything was fine. But I was raised Southern Baptist. So here's the thing with Southern Baptist. Like, you may hear talk of the purity culture from like groups like Girl Defined or Paul and Morgan or the Transformed Wives. It's kind of the reason why I have problems with these people, is because it goes very hand in hand with how I was raised. Purity culture is very much Southern Baptist lifestyle. You went to church dressed to the nine. You went to church in your best clothes. No matter if the Bible said come as you are, you better have gotten up that morning and put on your best clothes. For girls, that better be a skirt or a dress, and it better be to your knees or longer. You better have fixed your hair, and that means either braids, curls. I was born in the early 80s, so by the late 80s, when I'm 4 or 5, crimping was still a thing. So if you were a woman, you were to do your makeup in a pristine fashion, not club makeup, but as in a very light but beautiful makeup. So you were to have neutral eye colors, either a pink or neutral lip, no bright reds, no crazy eye colors, no dark lip colors, none of that. Men were to either wear a collared shirt and dress slacks, khakis. Your shirt was to be tucked in. If you did not wear a tie, your top button was to be unbuttoned, but nothing further. And 99% of the time, you better have a suit on. Just saying. So, it was very much women wear dresses, men wear pants. You don't go to church in pants if you're a girl. That's the way life was. Purity culture is a huge thing in the Southern Baptist Church. It is very, very fire and brimstone. Every single thing you do, think, say is going to send you straight to hell, with fire and brimstone raining down on you for all of eternity. You're going straight to hell. You're going to burn in hell. You're going to suffer. And that is how you're going to be. Now, you really don't get to that until you're about 8 or 9-ish. So when you're 4 or 5, when I first started going to church, it's all sunshines and rainbows. You're coloring pictures of the Noah's Ark, and you're learning about all that stuff. So things are great. Especially when you start hitting 8, 9, 10, you're starting getting closer to your teen years. That's when they start really pushing the difference between the genders. It starts a little bit when you're younger, like when we're doing like the little playtimes in Sunday school. The girls are always, here's a baby doll, here's a Barbie doll, here's a kitchen set for you to play with, and the boys was, here are trucks, here are this, that, and the other. I was a kid. I came from a working class family. My dad was a construction worker. I had been on construction sites since I could walk. I learned how to read blueprints before I learned how to read. So for me, I liked to play with trucks and dig in the dirt and do stuff like that. When I was at home, my mom had to fight with me to put on a shirt for me to go outside and play, because I just wanted to go out and play. My dad didn't wear a shirt 99% of the time when he was walking outside. I didn't figure I had to, and that's just the way I was. And I would sit down and start playing with the truck. And I can remember a Sunday school teacher snatching that truck out of my hand, picking me up by my arm, and marching me across the room and giving me a baby doll. This is what you're to play with. And then handing the truck over to a little boy. Well, I didn't want to play with the baby doll. I wanted to go play with the truck, but that was not allowed. When you got finished with Sunday school, as a child, you went to children's chapel where you sung all the little cutesy songs, and they did a children-esque type sermon that was more toned down on the fire and brimstone, but hell was introduced very early. I can remember as a young child, I don't know quite what age, but I can remember as a child one day coming home from church and crying because I just knew we were all going to die and we were going to go to this hell place that was horrible, and it was just terrible. And my dad, being like, we were like blue collar people, like working class people, so my dad cussed a lot. And I can remember my dad saying a cuss word after I came home from church that day, and I just broke down and I was like, Daddy, you can't talk that way. You're going to go to hell. You're going to go to hell and you're going to burn forever. You can't talk that way. And completely having a meltdown. That is not healthy for a child at all. But that is what is pushed into kids' heads at an early age. And I was forced to go to church at least every Sunday. Sometimes even more than that. And then, don't wait. You can't wait until summer when you're like out of school and then they have vacation Bible school. Well, and you have all these churches in one small town, and they stagger who does vacation Bible school on which week. So you just go to church for an entire week. And then the next church has vacation Bible school. So if they're all Southern Baptist churches, your parents would just take you from one vacation Bible school to the next one, to the next one. So you spent entire weeks being just bombarded with this same information, where they were just drilling in your head this gender roles and what women are supposed to do, what men are supposed to do, and the fire and brimstone and the hell and the everything's a sin, and just horrible things. When I was smaller, we lived in a town with my mother's side of the family. We moved from there when I finished kindergarten and moved closer to where my dad worked, which my dad worked 2.5 hours away from where we were living. But we moved into another small town. So again, we are moving from one small town with a church everywhere to another small town with a church everywhere. And it continued. You had your friends in school going, what church do you go to? Oh, you haven't found a church yet? You should go to church with me this weekend, and blah, 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 blah. You had children. At this time, I was 6 years old when we moved. So you had children proselytizing in school to get their friends to go to their church. And it started all over again. It's a terrifying thing for a child. But for me, I was always an inquisitive child. I always had questions. So for me, it was, so God created everything. Who created God? If God was here forever, why weren't we here forever? Or, just various things like that. How did God speak with Noah? In his dreams? Did Noah not question that was just a dream? I mean, I had dreams that, all kinds of different stuff. I have dreams that I can, run on a rainbow, but I can't run on a rainbow. Like, all kinds of different things. I can remember the Adam and Eve story. I was like, but snakes don't talk. And then with Eve eating the apple, it's like, okay, why didn't Adam stop her? Why weren't they always together? If that's because it was always taught to us that men and women, when they're in a marriage, are always together. So why was Eve wandering around for this snake to tempt her by herself? Why did Eve eat this apple by herself? If Eve ate this apple by herself, why did Adam know he was naked all of a sudden? And anytime I would ask a question of my Sunday school teacher, I would get this look. Like, because I just did not buy this bullshit right off the top. And I would be pulled out into the hallway and stood up against the wall, and I would have the youth pastor brought to me, and he would tell me, now you can't ask these questions in your classroom. You just listen to what the teacher says and you agree. Now, I'm not going to have this conversation with you again. And then I would be marched back into the Sunday school classroom and plopped back down in my chair. But I always had questions, and I was always taught that if you have a question, you ask. So I would ask another question, and the cycle continued. If a child has a question, it's because the child doesn't understand. And if the child doesn't understand, how are all these adults falling for it? So, I just never quite grasped onto everything, but I started learning to keep my mouth shut. And the longer I kept my mouth shut, the less and less the questions came, and the more and more I just started buying into it. And everything was real, and hell was real, and heaven was real, and God was real, and there was a real Jesus that died on a real cross, and it paid for our sins. Sure, everything was true. I became one of the brainwashed masses, and this happened to me early. I'm saying like 8. And you've got to think, I would go home to a family that wasn't attending church, and I would look at my family and be like, it's so sad my parents are going to hell. And I would sit there in judgment of my parents. That's a horrible thing for a religion to do, to put a child in place of judgment of their parents. But that happens all the time. So, this is kind of running a little long, so I'm going to stop here. This stops at about age 8. I will start up on the next one and go from there. We'll see how far that one goes. So if you like this kind of story time-ish, talking about where I come from on the religious perspective, give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe and ring that bell. Down in the comment section, let me know what your earliest church-involved activities were and what were your earliest questions, issues. Did you buy it immediately? Did you not buy it immediately? And were your experiences similar to mine? You can leave all that in the comment section, or you can look in the description box. My Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and email are all there. You guys can contact me on any of those, and I will talk to y'all through that if you so wish. Anyway, guys, that's going to end it for this video, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.